I feel like the oceans are there's so much going on beneath the surface that we can't even fathom. So I feel like there's very possibly a lot of sightings that are other creatures that were mistaken, but
Mm.
it wouldn't surprise me if there was something more out there. I mean, for me, it's like I've always kind of wondered if mermaids, I know in, like, for example, the Disney version is half human, half fish, but what's to say there isn't some sort of fish type creature that looks like a hybrid by our standards that we just haven't seen before that, yeah, we interpret as a mermaid.
Good evening, hikers. Tonight, the fog comes in heavy from the coast, rolling through the pines like an old memory. Out here, the woods feel ancient, older than the roads carved through them, older than the towns that cling to the shoreline, older even than the stories we tell to keep the darkness at arm's length. This is the Fogcast, speaking from the quiet places where Maine's myths breathe and the night carries the weight of things unseen. Across the water, the Maritimes hold their own shadows, salt-bitten legends, creatures shaped by deep harbors and cold forests. Stories passed from hand to hand until no one remembers where they began. Tonight, we welcome back Chelsea and Evan Carr Kinnear of It Came from the Maritimes as they join us in the lantern light to trace the old threads that bind our regions together. Maine and Atlantic Canada share a coastline, but they also share something older, a restlessness in the land, a sense that the world is not as empty as it pretends to be. Before we step into the dark, a don't whistle while at sea, or the wind is likely to hear you reminder to join us in the shadows of the pines by becoming a lantern holder on Patreon. You can get ad-free episodes, bonus tales, and more for the price of a cup of coffee. Now then, time to hit the trail. Let's get into the episode. Welcome back, folks. Joining us, coming back to the show for their second visit, we have Chelsea and Evan tonight. How y'all doing?
Good.
Good, thank you.
Super glad to have you all back. It has been a minute. It's probably about a year or so since we last had a chance to cross paths and chat for a little bit. How's things been going for the both of you?
It's been good. It's been a busy year with the podcast. We're all about the Atlantic Canada folklore, ghost stories, and all of that. And we've gotten a chance to learn and research even more and do a couple of live events, things like that. So it's been a big year. I think since we met you last, we got invited to join a paranormal investigation, which was very cool. So
Wow.
yeah, we've had some big stuff on the go.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I've seen you've been busy. You've been doing a lot of stuff. You started I saw that recently, I think you had mentioned that you were doing a guided tour book of some sort that was going to be, is it focused in Nova Scotia, or was that just like all of Maritimes?
So I think we'll tackle Nova Scotia first, but you never know where the future will take us.
Sure, sure. And as a reminder, I'd probably say it in the pre-credits, but it came from the Maritimes is covering specifically Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island, correct? That's what we count as the Maritimes, historically speaking.
It is, but we also throw in some Newfoundland. We say Atlantic Canada just because there's some just wild stuff coming out of Newfoundland, and it gives us some variety there.
Sure, sure. I can understand that. Yeah, no, definitely broaden the horizons. And it really, you look at it on a map, it looks like it should include, because it's like Prince Edward Island is just really, there's this one little strip that's along the coastline. A few miles further, and it's like this entire other body, which is like closer to it than it would have been. It was always a weird draw off for when you look it up and what it says the region is. So that's, yeah, makes sense to me.
Exactly.
So you've been very busy. I see you've been doing tons of episodes, as well as you're doing mini episodes and stuff like that. So you've always got new content, whether it be on the YouTube or Spotify. You on Apple Podcasts as well, I'm assuming, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are, yes. And then a few of the different channels associated with Spotify now.
Oh yeah.
Or I guess that you can link to through Spotify, like iHeart and
Oh yeah. I kind of forget that that's a thing.
so do I. I let
Yeah.
Spotify do the work for me.
Yeah, I go through Acast and they take care of 90% of the work, and I just literally upload the episode and put a title and description in it, and it's like, oh, magic, like do your thing. But yeah, I listened to tons of episodes of it at this point. I kind of go back periodically every few months and kind of catch up on stuff that I've missed. And recently, I've done a few posts on my social media, and I even did an episode recently of talking about Maine cryptids. And you had mentioned that you see a lot of similarities or common ground between them, or ones that are shared between the two of our respective regions. So that seemed like a great opportunity for another conversation. And coincidentally, this past weekend, mentioned it before the show, but I went to the Cryptozoology Museum. They just had their grand opening, the celebration for Lauren Coleman's 79th birthday. Got his book, got it autographed even.
A classic.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about that because I've been a fan of his since I was a kid. So super excited about that. But figured it would be a fun time. We can chat about some cryptids while I'm super amped on that. And then we'll kind of see where that goes. So first and foremost, I got a chance to go back through some of your episodes and see some of the cryptids that I recognize that we have similar stuff. One of the big things that I see that y'all have seeming a ton of, and you look at it, it makes sense. It's the Maritimes, but you have a lot of sea creatures, a lot of sea serpents, lake serpents, dragons, quote unquote, giant turtles, which is a fun one. All kinds of weird water stuff.
Yeah, and it makes sense, like you said, we're by the water, just like you are there, so you get a lot of different sea monsters, and then a lot of different little lake monsters, things like that. I find you're going to find a lot of variations on different things. And also, what I find interesting is, because when I was looking at some of yours, is that there's actually, if you look at some of the areas, you can kind of look and you're like, huh, this kind of goes straight across to here. And I wonder if this sea monster here then becomes this sea monster here and stuff like that.
Yeah. I wouldn't actually be surprised if there was a lot of them that is exactly the case. Have you, because looking at yours, here is a list of a few of them that I saw that you covered on your show. You had the Lake Utopia monster. You had the Miller Lake dragon. The Cranberry Lake critter, which I just love the name of that. Just critter. Anything you call it a critter, I love it. The Halifax Harbor Sea monster, which that one sounded very, very similar to Cassie, the Casco Bay sea serpent. It was like the description and everything about it was very, very similar. Cape Sable Serpent was another one that you've covered on the show. And you probably have done some other ones. That was just like a brief one of ones that I remembered. So yeah, there's a ton. And in looking back, there's a lot of theories when it comes to sea monsters, right? So one of the ones that like always comes up in ours is here we'll have ones that is like driftwood, logs, stuff like that, because the lumber industry, accidents would happen, logs would fall into the water, they sink to the bottom for a while, then after they've rotted, they become more buoyant, and then they float up river. They get stuck somewhere. Somebody sees it wiggling in the river or in the pond or wherever it ends up getting deposited. And then, oh, wow, you've got another sea monster.
Yeah.
And that's one of ours is actually the Miller Lake dragon. It actually literally is a log that people kind of got weird about for a while, and then they realized, and then people just started painting it.
Yeah. Yeah, we have one of those too. It's in the middle of a pond. And people just like go in there periodically and we'll just like, it sits there and it's like floating. It is kind of weird because of how it floats. Like it's a log that's just perfectly positioned, like straight up. And yeah. So when you see it and you're in a boat, yeah, it's pretty strange. But people have made a joke out of it now. And that's, become its own local folklore,
Oh, that's it. With the Miller Lake dragon, it started as a painted log and people created this entire backstory that's become a bit of a like local myth. And there's a nearby Boy Scout camp, so they always talk about it there. And like, be careful when you go in the water.
Sure. Yeah, we have a few lake monsters. Well, I mean, we have more than a few. So here in Acadia, we have one specifically that's by Sargent Mountain. Supposedly there's a sea serpent that was in the bowl of the caldera or whatever. So supposedly it's like, I want to say it was back in the 1800s. There was an explorer that went there, and basically when he first saw it, it was so deep that they could not figure out where the bottom of it was. And then somehow that just became associated with a sea monster or a lake monster that just rose out of the mountain into this lake. Well, I can't find any reason for why somebody thought that there was a sea serpent, aside from the fact that the guy just offhandedly said to the guide, I bet you could have a sea serpent in there. Which I was just like, well, that's kind of an odd basis for the entire
It's true though. I do find with just the origins of a few of the stories, like some of them have like multiple sightings, a really long backstory, but I know there's one kind of sea monster slash ogre from New Brunswick, the Goo of Shaler Bay. And the research I did into that story, because I wanted to do an episode on it, but I realized I wasn't quite able to with the limited research, because the story seems to be that when Samuel de Champlain like the famous explorer, visited that island, he saw squirrels and got scared because he didn't recognize them. And he started talking about how many vicious monsters were on this island. And then people started telling tall tales about the vicious monsters. And somehow that turned into the story of an ogre because someone heard a growl one day.
That's hilarious. I actually love that idea of this like great explorer that sailed across the sea. He gets there and he just sees a random squirrel and just loses his mind.
That's it. Just can't handle it. Apparently, he mentioned it in his journal multiple times.
I'm wondering if that's related because I actually have a local Maine cryptid that is actually based off of a squirrel.
Really? I wonder.
Yeah, the Willem alone. So I call it the psychedelic squirrel. Basically, it's a squirrel for all intents and purposes. It's no different in appearance than a normal squirrel. The only thing is it's super intelligent and it likes to take little balls of poison lichen and drop it into the ears and eyes of people like campers and loggers and stuff. Then they start hallucinating. And basically, it sounds to me like it was a really good excuse for hangovers because you'd always have a headache afterwards. You wouldn't remember what had happened the night before, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, well, that sounds super convenient when you get up the next day and you're like, oh, it must have been that squirrel. But now hearing that Samuel de Champlain had this terror, this absolute phobia of squirrels that he encountered when he came to Canada, it's making me wonder if there's a connection there.
Me too. It's very possible.
I haven't ever thought of a squirrel as scary aside from this one that I saw that people had fed it. It was like it lived right next to this place I used to work. People kept feeding it. Eventually the thing got so used to being fed that it would just go and steal people's lunch. And if you wouldn't let it have it, it would get aggressive. It would just start attacking. And they ended up having to call security one day because the squirrel straight up chased a woman across a parking lot, like climbing from tree to tree and jumping onto her, trying to get her. Wasn't rabid, just was very angry. So maybe it's an offshoot of one of the ones that he encountered.
Could be.
It could be.
So what's some of your favorite cryptids that y'all have gotten to cover?
So the one that I keep coming back to, I've done, oh my goodness, I think I'm about to do my third episode on the topic this summer, are just like the fairies and the different variations of fairies, which I know some people don't consider them cryptids, but I feel like they kind of fit within that
Yeah. No, I definitely
category.
would.
And one that I noticed you mentioned is in one of your social media posts are the lutins.
Yes.
Because we have those, like they're quite prominent in the folklore of Cape Breton Island and Nova Scotia.
No kidding.
Yeah. And I thought that was interesting because I know in Nova Scotia folklore, they're really heavily associated with the Acadian, like specifically the Acadian villages.
Yeah.
And one thing I find fascinating about them is that they're known for braiding the horses' manes and tails. And then it was an excuse for if people had a tired horse the next day, they'd say, oh, the lutins took them out last night. They took them for a ride. Like they're too tuckered out. They've been out all night.
Yeah, those are a really fun one. I like that one. Are they French in origin or were they Scottish? Because I noticed that a lot of like Maine's folklore is kind of a mixture of French, like Acadian, but a lot of Scottish stuff in there too.
Yes, and I think the lutins seem to be specific to the French folklore, but then there's also like hundreds of stories of fairies from the Scottish descendants.
Sure. Yeah, fairies, little people, gnomes, all kinds of different stuff, depending on what you would call it. Another one that's similar to the lutins is the red caps, those have come up a lot, especially in Maine folklore, because most of it can kind of say we have like around 7 different types of just like little people in Maine,
Yeah.
depending on like, French descent folklore, a lot of indigenous folklore. They have like 4 different ones that they talk about, depending on which tribe are listening to. And then there's also a lot of the other old world ones that have kind of been brought over and adapted into their own kind of thing that is an amalgamation. And it feels like the red cap is kind of that. It fits the description of a lutin, but it's like more malevolent.
Yeah.
I just recently actually had somebody. Have you ever heard of a puckwudgie?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Do you have those up there, or you have any like legends of those up there?
A couple of the goblin stories, like would probably be the closest. We have a lot of like Bacan, like Bochddan stories, which
Kind of like a hobgoblin.
Yeah, they're
but I
very
don't know if I've ever heard of Puckwudgie specifically up here.
Yeah. So I had somebody recently reach out to me it was actually on one of the cryptid posts that I had made. And he gave me a pretty long account of actually encountering a puckwudgie.
Oh my.
Yeah. So he said that it was about 2.5 feet tall. It was all in black, had the hat and everything. So it was like exactly like you look up the pictures, it was exactly that in his description. The part of it that was both hilarious, horrifying, and a little concerning is apparently he decided to shoot at the thing. So he pulled out his sidearm and shot at it. Apparently didn't do anything to it, but then they both just looked at each other dead in the eye and then just ran the opposite direction from each other. And I'm not sure what to make of that story, aside from it's so odd for somebody to know exactly what the creature is that they like talk about. And he said exactly that. He was like, it was a puckwudgie. And I was like, okay, first time I've ever heard of somebody in real life encountering one. But apparently this was only a few years ago. So they're still around, supposedly.
Well, it is interesting, right? Because I feel like if I saw something, I would certainly be like doing my research to try to figure out what it was. But I don't know, like, even if I saw like what I thought was a fairy, I don't know if my first instinct would be like, that must be one. I'd probably try to like rationalize it a little bit. But he went with his instincts.
I figure he probably assumed that he needed evidence somehow. And that's probably the fastest way. He figured nobody would be able to deny it if he brought him back.
I feel like you could get your phone out just as quick, but I mean, I guess maybe not get into the camera app.
Fair. Yeah, the last thing you need is like a blurry photo of it. And it's like, well, the other idea that, is always funny when people will say stuff like that. Cause I've had a couple of times that people have like mentioned, cause walking around here, there's a lot of people that hunt and stuff like that. So it always comes up. It's always people will be like, well, did they shoot at it or something like that? So one thing that I found is very rarely do people admit to shooting at something. The main reason being they're afraid it will be a crime.
Fair. You don't want the repercussions.
Yeah. So that always gives it a little bit more credibility when they're willing to say it, because I'm like, well, if they're worried about, committing a felony or something like that, and they're telling me they shot at what potentially was, I don't know, a humanoid of some sort, nobody's going to admit I just shot at a short guy that I just saw out in the woods. Like, you know what I mean? So it makes me think it's probably going to be a little bit more legit.
That's a good point.
I think I remember reading that I think it's like Washington State has a law that you can't shoot Bigfoot because and I think that the actual reason is that they're like, oh, we cannot have a bunch of hunters shooting at anything human shaped out there.
Probably a safe bet, honestly. And it sounds familiar, and I don't blame them. Just as a general rule, you don't want to mess around there. So, Evan, what's some of your most memorable ones that you've gotten to look into yourself?
I'd say I have two, and they're kind of like that vague, like, is this considered a cryptid or another thing entirely? But we have the Lunenburg werewolf here in Nova Scotia, so it's a bit of a werewolf story. I feel like a little less like full werewolfy transformation than some of the ones I've seen with you. And then the other one is the Heidi Hinder, which I think you have a very similar one there.
Yeah.
And just a creature that it's always just like out of the corner of your eye, always just like, and you can just hear it, and it will make this screeching sound, and it'll get louder and louder and louder, and then you don't hear it anymore because it got you.
Huh. Now that's an interesting variation on it, because the one that we typically hear at least in Maine's folklore, when it comes to like lumberjacks and stuff like that, it's completely silent. You don't know that it's there until you catch it out of the corner of your eye, and then you try and turn, and it's not there, and then you turn again, and it's not there, and it messes with your head, supposedly because it feeds more off of the fear than anything. I mean, I'm sure because it disappears people as well. There must be some other aspect of it, flesh has got to be involved, I'm assuming. But I like the idea that there's like a variant of it.
Yeah.
Whether it's evolved from, did that come from lumberjack folklore, or was that from like another?
It's hard to say. I feel like we get like some bits and pieces, but in Nova Scotia, I find there's actually not that much lumberjack folklore that we get. Like, because I know I'll like read the stories that come out of there, and there's like all these like fearsome critters and like those types of things, and
yeah,
I love all of those things. But then I find we don't get as many cryptids as I would like around here.
You have a lot of ghosts, that's for sure.
Oh, we do. We have a ton of ghosts, and that's the thing. But yeah, it's possible, and some versions of the Heidi Hinder are a ghost. It's like, or a murderous guy who kind of turned into like a malevolent spirit almost. And so it's kind of is this really a cryptid? Or, and sure. the stories say the one person who saw it in a reflection somewhere, which was the one way to defeat it, would never tell anyone what it looked like. So we don't know.
Oh, what a mystery.
Yeah.
that actually answers a question that somebody had asked me the other day, was how does anybody know what they look like if you never can see it? And I said, somebody at some point must have held up a mirror. I would like to assume that there was some guy that was clever enough that he was like, here you go. And then just, that's good to know that you actually have a story where that happened. So did that person end up being like the one survivor of the Heidi Hinder? Because ours, there's no survivors. The hide behind, it takes everybody it goes after. You're gone. That's it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, this is kind of the one person who got out, and I think it's she was running away and she tripped and she fell right in front of a puddle, and then she saw the reflection in the puddle. So it wasn't even like like she was just trying desperately, like she was just a young woman trying to get away. And then after that, she always took a mirror with her when she went into those woods, because it's the Dagger Woods is what they're called, an area where there's a lot of paranormal activity around here.
Huh. That is a fascinating story. I really like that one. It's a neat. It feels like it's got a little more meat on the bones compared to our basic hide behind. I like that a lot. That's super cool. Let's go back to the werewolf. The Lunenburg werewolf, was it?
Yeah. So it's in an area Lunenburg along the south shore of Nova Scotia there.
Okay. Yeah. So that was, if I remember correctly, that was a man that they said, or they thought that somebody was attacking people, right?
Yeah, so it kind of started out with like it was an Acadian woman who, after the expulsion of the Acadians, ended up like she was kind of left without her family, so she ended up in this German settlement. So they basically link in the Acadians there, and I'm not entirely sure why, but why not? I think just to show that she doesn't necessarily know what's like normal for a person. So she ends up marrying this guy who's kind of like aggressive, and they kind of give him wolf-like features, and it's almost like, oh, like you can see something in his eye, and then the local livestock start to disappear, and you're like, it's like, oh, and they have these like bites in them that couldn't be done by like anything we know about. Like they're like even regular wolves I don't think would have been able to. And they're people are describing kind of like seeing a creature, but within the story we never actually get like an up close and personal view of him. And I mean, it gets fairly sad in that he attacks his own infant daughter, and then he's put in prison, and then overnight they just hear like a ton of howling and different noises, and find that he's like managed to basically gnaw through his arm to commit suicide. So like a lot going on there, and like it seems like there's some sort of transformation, but they don't necessarily say it's like a full wolf transformation, but it's just like honestly, like I said, there's not as many cryptid stories around here as I'd like. So when we get anything, I latch on.
Yeah. It's one of those ones that blurs the line where it's almost psychological, and like it somewhat reminds me. It's first, I got a lot of thoughts on that one. It being German is interesting because I haven't heard a lot of German werewolf folklore. They do have one, but most of the time when I hear it, it's usually French. For some reason, it seems like a lot of that folklore came with the Acadians. So I get where the connection to the Acadian woman being there. I just find it interesting that they said that she went to a German settlement and that was where that happened. So that's odd, but also the actual aspects of his transformation, quote unquote, kind of remind me of some of the legends of like Wendigo and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
how
actually,
it's more of a psychological thing than an actual physical transformation.
Yeah, and I know in the episode we did, I talked about that a bit because the Wendigo is often like associated with greed and things like that, and a lot of the story does come to the fact that the man, when he has an infant child, his wife is paying more attention, so he's just like he's very like envious of the child, and that seems to almost drive some of this this transformation in him.
Yeah.
But another thing I'll say is when I was researching the episode, I actually found out that for a while in like I think it would have been like I'm always bad with time periods, but like medieval or like a long time ago, Germany actually had like quite a few instances of having werewolf trials, similar to how there's like witch trials.
Really?
Yeah, there's a I think it's Peter Stump trial. It's pretty like famous, I think. And if you want to like read a truly bizarre story, yeah, look up Peter Stump. The Google AI describes him as a serial killer, but if you go into deeper details, you're going to find just some really weird stories. But like, also don't go looking at that unless you want to get real gory, because it does.
Yeah. I went on the wiki and yeah, wow. Well, I want to go down that rabbit hole. So cool. Well, thank you for that.
No worries.
I have not heard much German werewolf folklore, so I am very happy to learn more because it's one of my fixations is werewolves. I love them. Anytime I come across a werewolf story, I love it. And dogmen, werewolves, whatever, Lugaroo, all the different variations that we've come up with. They're all great to me. They're all good boys. So I'll always be excited when I find a news story that I can look up on them. So super. So definitely have a lot of similarities in, it sounds like there's cross sections where even if they're not the same by name, there's a lot of common themes that seem to recur. Whether it be the fairies, we have fairies here, and especially in, actually, interestingly enough, most of the fairy legends that I read in Maine specifically are right along the border to the Maritimes. Like if you look where the literal border of Maine is, all the legends from like that side more focus on fairies, gnomes, little people, etc. The further downstate you go, the more it's actually, further downstate you go, it seems like it turns to more ghosts along the coast, sea monsters as well, because we got a few of those. Mermaid legends is a big thing here. Y'all have any good mermaids?
We do. We have a couple of like relatively famous sightings back in, it was in the 1600s. There was a documented sighting of a mermaid in the St. John's Harbor, Newfoundland.
Oh.
And apparently a well-respected ship captain actually like wrote down in his journal, and he even like went to authorities with this information because he was so perturbed. And one day he was in his boat, and this, like what he described as a long blue-haired mermaid, tried to jump aboard, and he described it as a creature with a perfectly round head with, it was like long hair like protrusions or something. So it was kind of like, it was very specific wording. And then the other detail I remember is a tail like a broad hooked arrow. And apparently he used his oar to like beat it off the boat, and it kept jumping back on, and eventually it swam away.
Wild.
Yeah. So I know with that story, there was part of me that because it has a round head, I thought seal, but it's based on the journal entries. It seems like multiple people saw it up close, and they were in the harbor. So it's like, it's not like they were out at sea for like months and they were right. They were in a safe port. So you'd assume they were well fed and well hydrated and not sharing.
Pretty familiar with I would hope anyways, familiar with what they were looking at, I would like to think. But yeah, that's an interesting one. I have come across a couple of like historical ones like that, like Cassie in the Casco Bay. That was first spotted like in the 1790s, I think. It was like 1791 or something like that. And it was the same deal. It was an explorer who had traveled, had been, on the sea for years, and just was down along Casco Bay and saw this just 100-foot long thing going through the water and had never seen anything like it. So, I mean, it seems like obviously we have a ton of coastline. They're always going to see weird stuff at the coast, right?
Yeah.
Mermaids are one of the ones that I like because there's so many variations on them. Like every description you see of a mermaid is different. The one that you just described is completely different than any one that I've ever heard of. Right down to the detail of the tail, even. And I wish he had drawn it. I wish he had an artist with him so he could have drawn like a rendering of what it looked like. Or, of course, back then, I'm sure that nobody was really interested in drawings like that. But
well, it's interesting you say that because this isn't quite Maritimes. It's a little to the west in Quebec. But when I was researching the mermaids of Atlantic Canada for an episode, I ended up finding it was from the early 1600s, but there was an explorer who he called it the Codex Cadenensis or something.
Yeah, I'm actually getting that right now. It's the Codex canadensis.
Yeah.
Canadensis. And it was collected by a French Jesuit missionary between 1664 and 1674.
Yes, and in that he actually documented a creature he saw. Was it in the St. Lawrence River?
I believe so. I'm trying to find the picture because it's a
Yeah,
weird
'cause
one.
it did stand out to me because he did draw a picture and it like looked pretty standard to a mermaid as we kind of typically visualize them. Of course, and like there are the unique differences in each report, but
Mm.
it's if you looked at the picture with zero context, I feel like 9 out of 10 people would be like, that's a mermaid.
Yeah. So what, because I always like to think and theorize on that, they always used to talk, well, it could be like a dugong, it could be a manatee, things like that. Seals, even. We have a few that are big-ish that maybe somebody could misidentify one. You think that they're just seeing seals, or do you think there is something that we don't know about out there?
I feel like the oceans are there's so much going on beneath the surface that we can't even fathom. So I feel like there's very possibly a lot of sightings that are other creatures that were mistaken, but
Hmm.
it wouldn't surprise me if there was something more out there. I mean, for me, it's like I've always kind of wondered if mermaids, I know in, like, for example, the Disney version is half human, half fish, but what's to say there isn't some sort of fish type creature that looks like a hybrid by our standards that we just haven't seen before that, yeah, we interpret as a mermaid.
Sure.
We also have some stories of selkies, so like they transform into seals, but then shed their skin and come on land as humans. So, I mean, if you're looking for something, they just transform completely into seals, but we do have some of those as well, so it keeps it interesting. We got a lot of things that are human aquatic mixtures.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely, I mean, selkies are a pretty familiar piece of folklore brought over from the old world. So I definitely can see where it's got to be something when you just spend this much time on the sea. You're going to eventually see something. You're not going to be able to know what it is. Maybe. I don't know. It seems like that's the case anyways, because I know tons of, again, people that live here, fishermen year round, they spend on the water. And even they have stories, whether it be, weird stuff that they saw in the water, stuff they saw on the water, UFOs, ghost ships, ghosts, who knows, all kinds of weird stuff. Part of the charm of living on the coast, I guess.
It is.
We're lucky to have such a wonderfully diverse cultural folklore in this region, and it seems like even though there's like been a few centuries of separation, it seems like we still have a lot of common notes that flow through and definitely fit the pieces together. I like hearing more about it from your end because y'all get to do different type of research from what I usually do, and you come up with some very interesting stories. So I always enjoy having you on and getting to hear about them. One thing I want to ask you, because we're on the topic of cryptids anyways, if you could search for any cryptid, what one do you think would be the most likely that you would be able to not only search for it, but could prove that it existed?
Ooh.
Say money was no object. You can go anywhere. What's one that you would want to look for?
That's a great question.
Just
Honestly,
I know. I'm thinking, I feel like the most likely thing that you could find is some sort of sea monster, because who knows what's going on in the ocean. But that being said, I don't have time to search the entire ocean. um,
And to mention it's monster soup out there, honestly. Like, even the stuff we know about is pretty monstrous, to be fair.
And that's the thing. There's a good chance I'd find something and be like, this is a sea monster. And then they'd be like, no, this is a cataloged fish. We know about this. And I'd be like, sure.
It's not a monster. Show me an oarfish. That's a sea monster.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I do think it would be so fun to, like, for me, I'd say, like, and I know this is kind of a basic answer, but the very first cryptid that I ever was interested in, like, as a child, was just the story of Loch Ness and the monster there. And it's like, I've read so many books. I've like, and I know there's so many mixed opinions about the story, but I feel like it would be so fun if we could. I feel like Evan and I could probably tackle one of the smaller lake monsters. Like, it sounds like Cranberry Lake is pretty small, so we could go looking for the critter.
Yeah, I think there's a problem with that in that if you Google Cranberry Lake, there's about like 300 of them in Nova Scotia. So you kind of need to. It's like, I think I know the one, but who knows?
Yeah, take your pick. It's kind of a needle in a haystack at that point. Could be one, could be all of them. Who knows?
You see,
Can you imagine?
I think.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I think, and this is maybe hubris, but I think that if you want to find a monster, you find the ones that are coming for you. So I'm going after the hidey hinder, right? Like,
Ho ho.
Yeah.
then, right? Like, I don't need to find it; it finds me.
Yep. You just stand in that patch of woods, and eventually you're gonna get a bite.
I do know we also have a cryptid in Nova Scotia called the Cape Breton Hairy Man, who's like a Sasquatch type creature. And it sounds like he seeks out human interaction. So I bet we'd have good luck in that case.
Oh, that's an interesting one. So is that one? It's Bigfoot or Sasquatch adjacent?
Yeah.
Because I think everywhere in North America and really around the world has like some sort of large ape-like cryptid of some sort. We have a few of them in the Northeast. Usually most people think of it as Pacific Northwest thing. You have the Cape Breton, and then we down here, we have a couple of them. Probably the closest one to a Sasquatch is the Medibumps howler.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know why people gives them all like these really weird names, but it's like it's part of the charm, and I like it. It's that old, folklore Americana sort of thing, and I love it. But at the same time, it's such a weird description because this one in particular, it's not just a regular Sasquatch. It's got a really long head. Like its head is like extended, and its mouth is really like wide.
Oh.
So when it opens its mouth is like huge and it howls, which is such a strange thing. And like, but I love hearing regional Sasquatch stories. Have you heard any actual accounts of the Cape Breton wild man, or is it just a vague cryptid that people know exists?
There's definitely some accounts of him. I don't think there's too many recent ones. But it seems like there was one man in particular who had a bunch of instances of seeing it, and it seemed like it was like overall pretty harmless, but it would be like, oh, I like hung up my like the things I caught while I was hunting or fishing, and they were gone when I came back, and I saw this like hairy guy running away with them. But then later, when my truck was stuck in the mud, like I felt a big push, and then I see like these giant footprints behind and like some hair stuck on the tree type of thing.
It sounds like a great guy, to be honest. I mean, that's a pretty fair trade.
That's the thing. Like, it seems like he's kind of like, he's gonna steal your snacks, but he's gonna like otherwise be like mischievous or just kind of like helpful.
Not a bad arrangement. I mean, it could be a lot worse, right?
Exactly.
A lot of Sasquatch stories you hear, they're like, throwing rocks or, trying to steal your I don't know, your livestock or whatever. That's what they deal with out in the West, is like them just picking up cattle and walking away with it or whatever.
And we do have like one story from kind of another part of the province of just like a rock coming flying out of nowheres that they attribute to Sasquatch. But like the stories with the Cape Breton hairy man seem to be like, oh, I was fishing down by the river, and then like I heard something behind me, saw a giant hairy arm jump, like lunge down into the water, pull up a fish 3 times the size of mine, smile at me, and then walk away. So it's just like showing the guy up at fishing.
He's just a troll.
Exactly.
It's just a random internet troll that just shows up. He's just like the full Chad look and everything like that. Just really hairy version of it. Somebody needs to make that a meme.
Really.
That's awesome. I love that. I love folk myths as much as like cryptids are cool. You know, the authenticity of the real science of like looking for something like the coelacanth or something like the you know, right now there's a huge studies going on right now in Maine when it comes to eastern puma or the eastern cougar,
yes.
because there's a lot of evidence saying that they're making a return, and a lot of the local cryptozoologists are very excited about this because we've been told since 1910, I think, that they do not exist around here. Yet we're finding evidence. We're finding scat. People are getting tracks. People are seeing them more and more frequently. And it's exciting. The real science is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I also love the whimsy of the folk creatures. Like, you know, hearing about the, you know, Cape Breton wild man and things like that, hairy man. It's stuff like that that is like, it's a little more endearing. Those are the ones that I really gravitate towards. As fun as the other stuff is, those are the ones that kind of draw me in. Is that the same for you, or do you have a preference?
No, I agree completely. My favorites that I've heard, like not from locally, but I think it's in Pennsylvania, is the squonk. That it's like so ugly that it cries whenever it sees itself and is just always crying.
Yeah, even better with that is when if somebody else sees him, he literally cries so hard he just dissolves into a puddle of tears.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It just disappears. It's the perfect cryptid.
And that's the thing.
He
It's just, like,
technically
so
counts as a
harmless.
fearsome critter, supposedly.
Yeah.
He's on the list of fearsome critters, which is a very wide-ranging list of things. Do y'all have any fearsome critters up there?
So we do a bit in New Brunswick. I'd say that's where most of our like lumberjack lore would come from. Specifically, there's one story, and this is another one that, like Evan mentioned, we don't really have any or many definitive cryptids. This is another one where there's the story of the Dungarvan Hooper.
Yeah.
And yeah, the overall story is that there was a young man murdered for his riches at a lumberjack camp. And ever since that day, an awful like whoop, whoop can be heard in the woods in that area. But there's some people that attribute it to a ghost. There's other people that claim there was just like a man living in the woods there who wanted to keep people away from his like encampment area. So he was doing it. But then there's a lot of people that think it's some sort of cryptid creature, and they've associated it with the fearsome critters of lumberjack lore. And it was interesting hearing you mention your creature with the name the Howler.
Yeah.
Because I don't know.
Pretty similar. Sounds pretty similar. Yeah. It's interesting also on another level, because the name, when I heard the name, I had to read it before I like actually connected, because we have a fearsome critter in Maine that's called the Dungarvan Hooter.
Oh.
Okay. But very different creature. Now, the Dungarvan Hooter, it looks like an alligator.
Okay, so very different.
Very different. Looks like an alligator. Two big differences. It has a big old club on its tail made of bone, and it has gigantic nostrils. So what it does is if somebody's out and they're logging and they're in a marsh or something like that, it hides in the underbrush or it hides in the mud, waits for them to turn around, it whacks them in the legs with the club. When they fall on the ground, it sits there and smashes them with the club until they turn into a red mist. And then it snorts them up.
Oh my.
Jeez.
So whenever a logger would just go missing in the marsh and they couldn't find him, they said it was the Dungarvan Hooter.
Like, what are the chances that the names are that similar? Like, there must,
It's so close.
yeah, there must have been someone who heard the story in one place or another, and it got similar to so much folklore, it got carried, and or like someone just like took the name from one and applied it to the other legend. It's so interesting how that happens.
It's true. We have like a ding ball and a ding maul. They're both cat-like cryptids. One of them is a nightmare. The other one is a pretty chill guy.
Okay.
And it's like that. And I wonder if it is, either somebody that was hearing it in passing, a game of telephone, his granddad told it to him. And then when he was later doing something, he told it to his kids, or he told it to a buddy, camp or something. Or if it's one chain of a story that some guy just heard it here and was like, you know what, we need our own version of that. and just decided he was going to just spin a yarn one night. But I wish we could find the actual lineage of where these stories started, because it's so vague. It's like they'll be told and retold and retold, but it's not like you can say, here's the first person that ever said the name Dungarvan Hooter. I wish we could have that knowledge. It'd be just fascinating.
Oh, it really would be. It's interesting. So we have a cat type cryptid that I feel like Evan needs to mention. The cabbits.
Oh, the cabbits.
Oh,
A cat rabbit hybrid,
amazing.
which is harmless, but just kind of something that your drunk uncle will tell you about one that he saw on the way back from the bar. And it seems like it's either just like seeing bobcats or Manx, like breed of cats, because they have like kind of rabbit-like hind legs and get a little more hoppy in their movement. But it's also caused the most insults I've ever received in my life, because a little clip of me talking about them went viral on TikTok and had hundreds of people saying, well, this is dumb. Obviously, those aren't real.
This is like the worst place to have go viral too, is TikTok, honestly. Like, when it does happen, it's happened a couple of times to me. I usually end up shutting comments off, or at least the notifications for them, because it's overwhelming. I don't know what it is about the algorithm over there, but when something really takes, oh my Lord, does it go crazy.
Well, that's what I found so funny about the cabbits video, because for us, it's like we're talking about like Bigfoots and sea monsters and like endless ghost stories, like so many things in the realm of the paranormal.
Yeah.
But then what was meant to be like a fun little joke episode
How
about
dare
people
you.
confusing bobcats with cats, rabbits. People were not impressed with us.
I know they're telling us that we don't understand genetics, and honestly, I don't know if the average TikTok user knows more about genetics than I do, to be fair.
That's Dunning-Kruger in like fully just encapsulated, and it's perfect for that. But wow, is it frustrating. I mean, honestly, it is, though. Even with my experience, it's always those ones that you're like, oh, this will just be a fun, silly, haha thing, and then you realize the internet has no humor.
No.
They're terrible when it comes to that. Like, I mean, I have a pretty good audience that usually knows when you're being tongue in cheek. But when it gets outside of that bubble,
Mhm.
oh wow, you just get ripped apart. And it's just like, oh well, I never heard of that. And it's like, okay, cool, Nancy, I'll run it by you the next time that I'm doing research. What do you want? Like,
Right. Or I find if once in a while, usually people are positive. And like you said, it's like I feel like our listeners are all like very positive people.
Yeah.
But once in a while, there's someone who will comment and they'll say that folktale is told wrong. And I'm like, it's a folktale, folks. Like it's the whole point is that it's like shared and little bits and pieces get added or modified based on who's telling it and who's told it. It's
I
yeah, I
actually
will
just had
say.
that happen with a story that I told that was just a short. It wasn't like it was a 3-minute video. And this woman I think it was on Facebook, she sent it to, no joke, about 200 people. Because she was like, I've lived in this town my entire life and I've never heard this story. And I don't believe it.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, it's a folk tale. It's fine. If you didn't go and like, do summer camp, or you didn't have a reason to tell folk tales. I mean, for me, it was part of growing up, was hearing ghost stories and stuff like that. That's not everybody's upbringing. But then some random person is just like, I got to send this to every person that I know because I've never heard of this. And I was like, okay, cool. And then it just, after that, I was just like, all right, fine. And I ignored it. It's like, cool. Then I looked back at the video like a couple of days later and it was thousands of views.
Wow.
Like, I don't know how.
Advertising.
Yeah, I was like, okay, hey, thanks for the engagement. Like, so that's kind of a good segue. I don't want to keep you too much longer because we're approaching the hour mark. But it's been a while since I've gotten to talk shop with y'all. So how's things with the podcast? What's been new?
I mean, we're kind of just putting out episodes. I can't say, I mean, it's new subjects, but not necessarily anything blowing anything away right now, like of new formats or anything. But I'd say if you just want to keep on hearing folklore, we're kind of where to go if you care about the Atlantic Canada.
Sure.
Yes, and I guess our next big exciting thing we have planned is next month in August. We got invited to collect local ghost stories at the Uniacke State Museum, which is one of the haunted local museums Evan talked about in a past episode. So we're really excited to go there. We'll keep our eyes peeled because apparently there's a spirit of the former owner who walks along the lake shore. So
Nice.
Also, apparently a Bigfoot in the area. That's where
Yeah.
that story about the rock coming flying at some people is from too. So lots to keep
Interesting.
our eyes out for.
Yeah, that sounds fun. So, well, you have done a couple of things that I saw that was interesting, and they kind of, again, segued with what I was doing in a way. You had a walking tour, or an audio tour that you did recently on one of your most recent episodes. I thought that was a super neat idea. I love it. I like the idea of it. I wasn't sure how to do that. Seems like y'all kind of pulled it off with that one. Are you going to do more episodes like that?
Yeah, so we have some that kind of just like take you on a what we call like road trip episodes, where we kind of just describe like spots that you should stop at along the ways. But yeah, just with Halifax, since it's a city, we decided, well, and Chelsea took the lead on that one to kind of make a path around the city there that you could see everything that you wanted to see with I mean, it would be a long walk because I guess if you haven't been to Halifax, it's all hills, but
That
Yeah.
sounds really cool.
With it, like I know for me, probably me more than Evan, the first thing I do when I'm traveling is I look up like what ghost tours are available, the haunted places, and I noticed that there's a few friends that were visiting Halifax that were saying like, oh, are there any spooky places we could check out? So just a fun way to give people a few recommendations.
Right? Yeah, it's kind of cool because you spend so much time reading the stories, and especially if it's a place you're familiar with and you do, get to visit there yourself. It's nice in a way, and I'm trying to do something similar to that with the travel guide that I'm working on. But doing it as like a kind of a snapshot, just a little bite-sized thing for, each city or each town or a specific, sort of area. I liked that idea, and it was neat to see that you had done an episode, and it was fairly recent you did that, right? That was only a few months ago or something like that. I feel like it was, well, I'm kind of losing track of time currently because yeah, but it feels like it was not that long ago I saw that episode come up.
Yeah, it was probably even last month because I know last summer we each tackled a road trip. I did the South Shore of Nova Scotia and Evan did the Annapolis Valley.
Neat.
So we'll work our way around the Maritimes at some point.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of ground to cover, and I'm sure that it is a project and a half. So I don't blame you for taking your time. Especially, I don't know how it is up there, but our gas prices right now make traveling a little difficult at this point in my side of the border. So,
same here.
Yeah, it hasn't been fun. Well, I appreciate you both coming on. It has been great to get to catch up, great to talk shop, great to talk about some of your favorite cryptids and things like that. Before we go, it's been a little while. Maybe you've gotten to experience some things. Have y'all went and done anything, seen anything spooky while you're out there?
Well, I know, just speaking of Bigfoot, I haven't seen anything, but I know one of the things I understand about like Bigfoot is that often if you're in the middle of the woods and you hear clapping or knocking, that can be a sign. And I do a fair bit of hiking, and I was on a hike. Interestingly enough, it's in a section of woods that there's this like ancient dolmen, like a stone monument that they don't know the origins of. But when I was in the woods, no one else was on the trail. Like there had been no other cars in the parking lot that day. There's a couple of spots for wild camping. They were all empty. And it's like, I didn't hear any voices, anything like that. But I did hear a very distinct clap.
Huh.
And at first, since I was hiking alone, I had been clapping a bit just because you're supposed to make a little noise, right? In case there's wildlife nearby.
You don't want to surprise something.
Exactly. So I did at first assume it was an echo from me clapping, but then I realized the last time I had clapped had been about 5 minutes ago.
Heck of an echo.
Right? So, I mean, it could have been literally anything, but that definitely, it's made me think twice about going to that trail alone.
Yeah, I'm always one of the things that the quickest way to creep me out. I spend a lot of time walking around in the woods. The quickest way to creep me out is when I know that I'm the only person around, but I hear something that's distinctly human.
Yeah.
Clap, a voice, especially if it's like a specific word or something like that. Whistling. I just had this happen to me the other night. I was down in Acadia. I was actually on the Park Loop Road, and I stopped because I was trying to get a photo of view off of the side of one of these cliffs or whatever. So on one side of the road, there's like a rock cliff, and it's only about maybe 20 feet high. And then there's like trees at the top of it. So I get all my equipment out. I'm setting up my tripod. I'm getting my camera. I'm like all set to go. And all of a sudden, clear as day, and I'm the only one on this road. I have not seen anybody. Like, it's the Park Loop Road. Like, the most of the traffic kind of stops at like the head of it at Sand Beach. And that's where most of the tourists kind of hang out. And I drove way past that. I was miles in. And no lights, no nothing. All of a sudden, I hear just a very loud, steady, high pitch just whistle.
Ooh.
And the first thing I did was grab my infrared camera and I just start scanning the tree line, just hoping I'm going to see something up there. And I can hear something just walking. Just I hear footsteps. And then I'm like, okay, must have heard something. Maybe it was way down the mountain or something like that. Fine. I go to get my camera. I set it up on the tripod and then I hear it again. At this point, I'm no longer calm. I'm like, I'm like, where is this coming from? I spent about 5 minutes just watching, trying to see where it was. And every few seconds, I would hear that whistle. It was exactly the same every time.
Ooh.
And after about 5 minutes, I was like, you know what? No, I don't need this picture that bad. I was like, but yeah, that was just a recent encounter I had. Evan, you had anything cool happen to you since the last time we talked?
I'll be honest, I don't go outside my house enough. I'm fine reading the stories.
That's completely valid. I do not blame you in the least.
I will say this is probably since we would have last talked. Evan and I had mentioned earlier in the episode, we got invited to join a paranormal investigation.
Yeah, how'd
And
that go?
it was really interesting. It was at one of the National Historic Sites.
Cool.
And since Samuel de Champlain is the topic of the episode
Yeah.
with his fear of squirrels, it was one of the sites that he had like established back in the day. But the one like finding, I guess, that we had is we were investigating the chapel.
Mhm.
When I went into the confessional booth by myself, the temperature dropped. Was it from 21 to 18 degrees Celsius, Evan?
Yeah, it was like immediate.
Yeah. And then I stood in there for a couple of minutes. It stayed at 18. And then when I walked out and Evan walked in, it went right back up to 21.
Wow.
So I
That's-
don't know what that would mean, what it like we didn't get any other findings, but that it was just such a distinct temperature drop that yeah. So
Yeah,
there's
that's pretty significant.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think people understand quite how much, in an enclosed area, how much 3 degrees is a difference. It's not something that just happens. I've had to do climate control testing for, studies and stuff like that. And yeah, 3 degrees, that's the variability to where we would start failing stuff.
Well, and I think it was just the timing of it that it was literally like as Evan and I swapped out, it jumped back up to the
Yes.
same amount it had been before. Like it's not like it was a random number. So it was, yeah. But I guess that was not a story of Evan having a paranormal event. It was a story of him scaring the paranormal event away.
Well, I think it was on the last episode you had said that you like kind of wanted something to happen, but it sounded like it just never did. It sounds like
Right.
that trend still continued.
It's still one of these days.
When you finally get one, it's going to be a big one, man. And it's going to be
Oh, it will.
It's going to be something special. I can't wait to hear about it.
We're going to find the Nova Scotia Loch Ness monster.
Perfect. I'd love to hear it. Y'all should do something. You should make that a goal for your channel. That
Like
if you get to a certain amount of subscribers, that you're going to take the trip and you're going to go and find it. Truth be told, Nessie was the first cryptid that I heard of that got me into like cryptozoology and all of that stuff. And it seems like it's like if I were to ever go somewhere, I think that would be the one too, because it's a classic, right? Can't really beat the originals. Well, hey, it has been so fun to get to talk to you. I'm so glad that you were able to come on and chat with me tonight. Before we get ready to go, is there anything you would like to plug? I know you got an event coming up that y'all are going to be at in August, you said?
Yes, yeah. So it's Sunday, August 16th at the Uniacke State House. They're doing like a local market, and we're going to have a little booth set up there to collect ghost stories. And yeah, I guess just in the meantime, folks can find us on social media at It Came from the Maritimes. We try to share all sorts of fun, spooky coastal stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. It feels like y'all have a pretty good mixture of the same sort of stuff that we do. A little bit of everything, some ghost stories, some UFOs, some cryptids here or there, and then just some weird, interesting, stuff. You just did that piece on the murder ballads. I ate that
Yeah.
up. I'm a huge folk fan, so that I was like, wow. I was like, this is such a cool episode. Like, so stuff like that. I mean, if y'all enjoy my show, you're definitely going to love everything that Chelsea and Evan do that came from the Maritimes. Great show. Can't recommend it enough. Definitely should go check them out on YouTube, everywhere else that they're available. Are y'all still on Blue Sky?
We are, yes. We're not particularly active on it, but we've got one.
Okay, same. Yeah, I was looking at your page the other day, and I was like, geez, I was like, I never go on there anymore, and I don't know who's active on it anymore or anything. I'm terrible at social media in general, honestly. It's just become one of those things where if I could pay somebody else to do it someday, it'd be cool. Like
Same here.
yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind when I can just take a break. But anyways, it has been so great to have you on. I really appreciate it. I will be linking everything in the description below for everybody to be able to find them. And I will be back with y'all in a few.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Anytime.
The fog is lifting now, hikers, but the woods haven't grown any quieter. The creatures and stories we touched on tonight still linger out there, moving through the tree line, drifting beneath the waves, waiting in the places where Maine and the Maritimes blur together. Folklore doesn't end. It just settles until someone stirs it up again. My thanks to Chelsea and Evan for walking the old paths with us, for bringing the voices of Atlantic Canada into the Maine woods. The North Atlantic is a strange place, stitched together by folklore and fear. And tonight we traced only a fraction of what moves beneath its surface. If tonight's journey left you curious, unsettled, or looking over your shoulder on the hike back to your car, well, you're in the right place. You can find links to their work in the show description. They've been great friends to the show, so I do hope you will welcome them with open arms. The Fogcast is an Acadia After Dark production. Background music and sound effects are from Epidemic Sound, and our title song is courtesy of Pine Tree Riot. If you want more of the show and would like to support what we do, consider becoming a lantern holder on Patreon, where you can find early access to ad-free episodes, bonus content, and additional tales. Of course, if a monthly offering isn't your thing, you can always wander over to our merch store and get yourself something nice before hitting the trails. Visit acadiaafterdark.com and join us in the shadows beneath the pines. Won't you? As always, keep those lanterns lit and stay safe out there.